Hey there, welcome to With Bowl and Spoon. I am your host, Shelly Danko Day. I know you haven't heard from me much in the past couple seasons, but there's a good reason for that, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about that a little more freely soon. But for right now, I'm just going to give a little intro to this week's episode with Jen and Greg from Blackberry Meadows Farm. Blackberry Meadows is in Natrona Heights, and they started out as a CSA. They bought the farm from the Duffs. You'll hear all about this, but now they're primarily a pig farm, and I just wanted to let you know that we don't talk much about the pigs during the interview, but at the end, there's a bit where I go out to the pig sty bin, whatever, you'll hear me mess that up. We had a lot of fun looking at the pigs and watching the pigs, and the noise you hear clanking at the end there is from their feeder. They have an automatic feeder where they step on it and it lifts up, and then when they walk away, it slams down. So you'll hear that, and you'll hear some chickens and all kinds of interesting farm noises. So see if you can make that out. All right, enjoy this week's episode, and you'll be hearing more from me soon. Thanks.
Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon. Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon.
All right, well, welcome to With Bowl and Spoon. You guys go ahead and introduce yourself. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you.
Well, I'm Jen Montgomery from Blackberry Meadows Farm. I'm the vegetable crop farmer coordinator here. I sort of keep the CSA going, and I do the paperwork, and we homeschool our two daughters.
She's the benevolent dictator.
I think that's basically it. Just the current status of what I do and where I am. Yeah.
Greg Bolus. I'm the janitor.
You guys make this sound so exciting.
Here at Blackberry Meadows. And I also
riveting radio.
I raised the hogs. He's like, yeah, this is exciting. I raise pigs.
Okay.
On pasture. Yeah, I'm right here in the suburbs of Pittsburgh.
I promise this conversation gets more interesting. Okay. So Blackberry Meadows Farm. How long have you guys had this farm?
Well, we bought it in 2007. And the previous owners, Jack and Dale Duff, had this farm as a certified organic CSA vegetable farm. And we met them when we were living in the South Side and going to the farmer's market there. And they casually mentioned they were ready to retire and sell the farm. And we thought, oh, well, maybe a lot of money, but maybe we can help you find people that want to buy it. And it ended up that we were the ones that were interested in buying it. And we started a collective, or trying to start a collective of people to buy it as a co-op, and it sort of all percolated down to me and Greg's brother and a business partner of ours. We had started, before we bought this farm, we started a LLC called Urban Homesteaders LLC, and so he was a business partner of ours in that program. And so 2007, Greg was working on writing the whole business plan to get a loan for the farm, and I was out here living with the Duffs and learning how they ran the whole operation. That was 2007, 2008. And in February 2008, we've got approval from the bank to purchase the farm. Does that sound like a good summation?
Yeah.
Before the Duffs had it, they were one of the original CSA farms. There was Don Kretschmann, there was the Duffs. T. Lyle was one of the old school. Who else would be? Yeah, Paul Sarver. It was kind of the old school CSA original organic crew, and I feel like we inherited a lot of the legacy from the Duffs when we bought this farm too. Who were there with Longview Farm? Glendenning, Bud and Carol and Glendenning also. So yeah, they had a farm, Longview Farm, right? Is that what it was called?
They were the first CSA.
Longview Farm, and they partnered with the Duffs, and that became Two Farm CSA. And along with Don Kretschmann, that was one of the first CSAs in the whole region. And there were people that would come from South Hills for organic produce. It was really hard to get back in the early 90s. The National Organic Program didn't start, I think, until 95 or 96. Yeah.
So you're the next generation?
I would say, yeah.
Coming after that?
We're turning into the old school generation.
Yeah. Oh, I feel that.
Yeah.
For
so
sure.
when we bought the farm, we qualified as new and beginning farmers. So there were some loan arrangements that made it more appealing for the banks, I guess, by being a new and beginning farmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some grant programs too that we qualified for. Just they incentivize like minority, and beginning qualifies as minority.
So I want to talk about post buying the farm, but pre buying the farm. Where'd you come from? You lived in the South Side. Mm-hmm. You were city folks.
Yeah.
Well, I came from the Westview in the North Hills School District, right outside of Pittsburgh. So I've lived here my whole life. And then going through the sustainability program at Slippery Rock, we wanted to make something of our lives that was impactful. And so we formed up Urban Homesteaders, and we were doing a bunch of different projects around Pittsburgh. I was doing mostly nonprofit work and biofuels. We had lived in Monroeville and had tried to start like a garden club there. And then in the South Side, we were also working with soda construction to do like energy assessments on rooftops and figure out how we could do like alternative energy projects. And then so I did some like renewable energy work. And then the opportunity for the farm came up, and so I was still doing a lot of that nonprofit work in Pittsburgh while Jen was focusing on farming out here and learning the operations of the farm. Then from like 2009 and 2010, PASA hired me to be the Western director and to develop like new entrepreneurial programs. And so I did that and put a proposal back up to the then executive director, who just basically buried it. And I love the organization, but I wouldn't say it was a friendly parting on that part. But I had hired a staff on that continued to run PASA after I was gone. But while I was at PASA, a lot of like ideas about the local food system had come up, and a lot of people had been excited about potential ventures that PASA could be developing, including a lot of farmers market work and research that I've since like shared with other organizations, including Food Policy Council. From Pitt, I was contacted by Audrey Morell out of the Berg Center for Ethics and Leadership about some things that we could do in order to really make an impact. From our work at Urban Homesteaders, it was a really hard sell to get anything like accurate data out of a community. We're talking about sustainability data back in the early 2000s. So like we barely had sustainability directors at that point. And, no one was looking at those kinds of metrics. And so what we were doing at Pitt was to try to develop a method to gauge whether or not a community was a food desert. And rather than focus on the desert aspect, we focused on this abundance aspect. They called it the Food Abundance Index, which was a way for communities to self-assess and qualify for funding that was dedicated towards addressing food desert issues. And it's gone. Audrey and Pitt have taken that across the country. They got a whole they've got a whole show to that now. There's a lot of places that are starting to use the Food Abundance Index as a way to not only gauge like where they qualify for funding, but also as like a checklist of things that can be done within a community to address food desert issues and to achieve food abundance.
And it allows communities to evaluate the resources.
Correct. So they can, there was a whole bunch of different levels to it, like whether bus routes, were going through the community, whether or not there was open land to be used as community growing spaces, whether there were corner stores or even food trucks that were coming into communities. And so it was structured like the LEED score sheet in the green building world. So there was like a whole bunch of different categories and different levels of engagement that they could get.
So, Jen, this is a good opportunity to get to know you a little bit more, because I know Greg, and I've seen him. He's been kind of public in certain places that I've been as well, but I don't really know about your background. So you went to Slippery Rock for sustainability undergrad.
Yes. Well, no, that was both of us were grads. Well, he was there for undergrad, but we both met during grad school. I grew up in West Virginia, the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, and my parents were just, regular Americans, but we had a backyard garden, and Mom we grew a lot of food. My mom and dad liked to do a lot of canning and preserving, and they'd support local farms and get bushels of things. I went to undergrad at Shepherd University. I thought I was studying history and moved over to the environmental studies program once that started. That's when I started to learn about organic agriculture and the impact on the environment and the impact on the economics of the local economics. And so I found a small organic farm to work on. It was actually over the Potomac River into Maryland, and it was called Earhart Organic Farm. Maybe 3 acres, I can't remember now. I was in my teens at that point, late teens, 18 or 19. And they were at the forefront of the organic farming system back then. Her parents were hippies that moved to the land and started the farm. And at that point, she was in her 40s. Beth was in her 40s and running the organic farm. And so I kind of learned from her system. And her mother actually was an educator in organic agriculture too. And so I did that from probably 1997 until 2004. When I went to grad school. Eventually I was like, where am I going with this farm? I'm never going to own it. Even if I'm farm manager, like live in a tent in the farm or something. So anyway, my dad talked me into going to Slippery Rock for a sustainable systems degree, Masters of Science in Sustainable Systems. So it was called MS3. And that's where I met Greg. He lived at the McCoskey Center at the time, and so he was the site manager, the caretaker of the facility. And the program was on the rocks at that point. The university was ready to shut it down, and the professors were fighting for their positions, and there was upheaval going on.
That's
which
terrible place to be. I mean, I was in a new program, struggling to get off the ground and find relevancy, but the other end has got to be just as bad.
Yeah. And it's so short-sighted because we were at that in the early 2000s. We were at the brink of being ahead of our time.
Yeah.
We were ahead of our time, and things were finally catching up. But I feel like the network, if you start interviewing through Pittsburgh, you're going to find there's a lot of people that are MS3 graduates, and a lot of them are self-employed or have role model positions now, and I think a lot of them are just at their core rabble-rousers, and that caused a lot of strife through the university system because we can't fit into a box. Like, get these guys out of here. They don't follow the rules. They think too much outside the box. And so...
But that was what the program was about.
It was.
Is to find solutions to the big problems. Mm-hmm. So it's a shame that it was squashed.
Yes.
It doesn't exist anymore, that program? Okay.
No. If anything, they might have a sustainable program or just more of a... I don't know what it is now, what they've replaced it with. But when we were there, we were learning about permaculture and green building and soil science and renewable energy and all that stuff. And the Sustainable Systems program was built around how they're all systems that work together as an ecosystem, and taking us as fresh minds and changing the paradigm of how the society operates.
Could operate.
Yeah. So
this was in the 90s?
No, 2004.
2004? Oh, okay.
Started in the 90s.
Right.
The program started in the 90s.
Early 1990s, yeah. And Bill Mollison, who started permaculture, came to Slippery Rock University and gave a speech about permaculture, and they based the whole program on those same philosophies of regeneration and adaptability and all the ecosystem principles that make food available to the entire earth without us.
So we graduated. He was maybe a semester or two ahead of me. I can't remember. And as one of my internships, I worked for Don Kretschmann. I did that for a season. And then we moved into Monroeville and lived in a suburb plan in Monroeville.
Called Garden City, and nobody was gardening. It
was
drove us nuts.
We tore up the front yard and planted it all in vegetables.
We got plenty of dirty looks for that too.
I
was going to say, did you get in trouble for that? I mean, it depends on...
There wasn't an HOA. There wasn't or a homeowner's agreement. It was HOA. There wasn't that. So we didn't have to deal with, rules. But it was definitely not socially acceptable.
Wow.
To have a non-grass front yard.
Yeah.
Well, then Ernie Soda from Soda Construction met us
He put an ad out. I think he was looking for renters for his apartment. No, this was advertised somewhere. I can't remember where I saw it, but looking for renters that he had to interview for an apartment in the South Side. And he had a third-story apartment that had a greenhouse roof on the top, and whoever applied needed to be able to take care of that greenhouse roof and grow things. We'll apply for that.
We're like, well, we're like country people, you know? So anyway, we got there, and that's when I was doing we're talking 2006 now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Earlier, at least a year before, because the Duffs were selling at the Southside Farmers Market, which was like 2 blocks from our apartment. And so they were the ones we were shopping with all the time. They wore Hawaiian shirts. Like it was a party at the Duff farm market booth. You know, they were just doing produce. They were working with the food, with Goodwill Industries as one of their like training programs. They hired the manager to come out, and they brought the students who were learning how to do various piecework, you know, things. And they came out and they were sorting vegetables, and they were helping with the harvest, and then they just had a huge amount of food going down to farmers markets.
Then I also got a job with Grow Pittsburgh, and I think that's when we first met, was at Mildred's Daughters, which was also a satellite Grow Pittsburgh location. I was at Garden Dreams most of the time, and then maybe 1 or 2 days a week up at Mildred's Daughters. And Mindy Schwartz owned Garden Dreams, and I collaborated with her a lot with seedling sales and seedling production. Even once we got the farm, we would collaborate and try to double up on things with getting food out to people.
Those early days of Grow Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So interesting. They have staff of like 20 now.
Yeah, right. At the very beginnings of Grow Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then about that time is when we started going through the whole process of buying the farm. And I think that took 18 months, do you remember? From approaching the bank to...
Approaching the Duffs.
Approaching the Duffs. Approaching the bank.
We announced it to the CSA. There was like at the time at the beginning of what would have been 2007 when the Duffs announced we're transitioning out, and these are the guys who are coming in, Jen and crew, because she had all the production knowledge and the rest of us were just muscle. And then and so we were like tag teaming in with Jack to work with him in the garage and work with him on the tractors, while Jen was here all the time learning all the planting schedules, you know, all the customer names and everything from Dale, the wife.
So it was kind of a soft entry that you did. So there was a little overlap,
we had
so you could sort of do on-the-job
We had an
training.
arrangement with them where we were renting from them, and they rented the CSA and the vegetable production, the whole system. We were renting from them.
It's $2,000 a month.
How much?
$2,000 a month.
Okay.
Was our original lease we had with the Duffs.
And I think we might have.
Lease to own, we'll call it.
Do you remember how many CSAs were?
There were 77 what we called full-time equivalents, which there was a lot of half shares. There were double shares at that time, what they call plus shares. And so when you average it out, like the plus share was 2 shares. There's a regular full season share, and then there's a half share, 2 half shares, or a full share. And so altogether, there was 77, I think, is what we wrote the business plan. The initial year business plan was on 77.
But it was an interesting arrangement, though, because we were able to rent from them at $2,000 a month. And then at the end of it all, they would apply that rent to our down payment. And if we didn't end up wanting the farm, then they got rent. We got a guaranteed loan from the FSA.
USDA, Farm Service Agency. The USDA guarantees loans for farms. We had done a lot of research on banks. We had gone to a whole bunch of different banks, and like none of them understood CSA, right? And it
was still relatively like new in the mainstream at that point.
It was very new.
The numbers are pretty unbelievable when you try to talk about value per acre of what you're growing.
Because they're looking at charts of USDA commodity produce, and they know how many acres of tomatoes yield how many bushels of tomatoes by USDA averages. And so they're looking at us like, you have 1/17 of an acre of tomatillos, right? Like, well, why? You know, radishes, they're just like, I can't, you know, this list goes on and on and on, because that's what they asked for. They asked for like you're a farm, you have a production list. Give us a production list. And it took us a while to figure out that we're not selling bushels of anything. We're selling subscriptions. It's not really a subscription. It's a co-production arrangement where they're providing the funding for us to get through the entire growing season. And we base the cost of that on what it costs us to keep the farm going, so that the customers are assured, like if they join the CSA, like they're really helping. They're really keeping us going. And in exchange for that, they get the bulk of the harvest. When what we were selling to people was not a bushel of tomatoes. And so when we restructured it and said, it doesn't matter what comes out of the field. What matters is that the people are investing us in the beginning of the season. And there's 77 of them on average. And so that's how we wound up finalizing the business plan. And then the guys at the bank are like, oh, no problem.
Nice.
And it wasn't that fast. It still took a few months. But in the meantime, there was some customers who approached us and were concerned that, we may not be able to make the down payment on the farm, or the prices were exceeding like comfort levels for the banks. And so that we weren't actually going to get it just because of the bureaucracy. And they offered to privately finance the down payment on the farm for us. Now, these are just customers of ours, and they're like, we don't know. I mean, we're just here for a year. Jen was here for the most part on a few Wednesdays to meet people and talk to them. But they really, like, whatever the Duffs were doing, whatever Kool-Aid they were serving up, the people knew why they were joining the CSA. And so
they just trusted this farm and trusted the Duffs so much that if you're cool with them, then
yeah,
cool
then
with
we're
us.
cool
And I
with
think
them
they
too.
understood the value of what it means to have food production in their community.
Right.
And what it means to not have food production in your community, especially back then, and how hard it was to get organic produce. Just organic produce, but local organic produce was not happening.
Right.
You didn't have to take them up on that offer. You got the
No,
money
we
from
didn't.
the bank.
No, correct. We didn't have to
Yeah.
take them up, but it
that was
it meant a
really
lot.
nice. Absolutely.
It was really a game changer for us to be able to it's like, this is not we're not the clerk and they're the customer and we set the prices and they stay over there. Like, they're coming behind the counter. Like, it is a co-production situation. And
So-
we've run with it.
That was 2008, and your farm has had some evolution since then. Do you still do a CSA?
We do. Yeah, we still pick for about 70.
Yeah.
We're kind of at that level. We used to grow on maybe 15 acres. We'd sold produce at farmers market, which we've quit doing. It's, for one, I don't like competing against the other vendors. There's either the vendors that are just shopping at auction and reselling auction produce, or there's the other vendors that are selling exactly the same thing I am. And they're shopping from Johnny's seed catalog and high mowing seed and growing Hawkeye turnips and heirloom radishes.
And they're all beautiful and they're all great. They're all putting minerals in the soil.
Right, and
so
they're
it's
all,
like,
we're just competing each other in a small market with a limited supply of customers. And so I stepped back and only do CSA. I'll take CSAs into the city for our farmers market. But to go backwards, we're growing on 15 acres of vegetables. We had a few on this side of the road and then another 10 across the street. And it was mostly tractor farming. There were a few years where we had live-in interns with us. We'd always have maybe 3 interns that would come and stay with us. Then I got pregnant with Evelyn. She was born in December of 2012. And that dramatically shifted the style of farming that we're doing. We started to wean away from large-scale tractor farming, and I changed to more intensive farming on this side of the farm. And we're down to about 2 acres of vegetables. And still with a 70-member CSA. We don't really have extra produce that we could sell at market, but I'm not doing that anyway. And so we're growing enough to satisfy a CSA on this side, and the labor has cut down dramatically.
So you're still there for those original customers who, are they still the original customers?
There's a lot
Many
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all the ones that have signed up already.
yeah.
Like the ones that are original customers have put their money in back in January.
Because they know we're coming through. We're coming through the winter, guys. Like,
Yeah.
there ain't nothing coming out of the ground until June.
Yeah.
So we got 6 months of parachute happening from January to June.
2012, that's when Evelyn was born, was also the year that I think we started to get into pigs.
Yep.
And maybe we had 5 at that point.
We were just buying Berkshires.
Yeah, we were just raising a few. And then we were doing the Farmers at the Firehouse Farmers Market. I think that ended close to around that time, too.
Yeah, by 15, I think it was gone.
Yeah.
Well, then Dave Heilman, he was a pork farmer, local pork farmer. He was going to school. He was leaving to go to school at the Del Val and wound up working with Rodale. And he was like helping everybody out on the eastern side of the state on tractor work. He was selling his hog operation, I guess, like his breeding stock. And so we wound up purchasing his breeding stock, and he'd given us all kinds. Like, we were friends with him, so he gave us all the housing and, like, here, I'll give you the whole pastured pig kit. And so we started pasturing them out, and I've run them, like, all the way around the farm several times. And now we're working with the conservation district on really, like, upgrading the whole pasturing program here at Blackberry Meadows. And
You
so-
had chickens. Do you still have chickens on occasion? You had chickens?
That's kind of comes and goes. We
Okay.
always have egg layers. We have maybe 60 or 80 right now.
Yeah.
So we've always got eggs. But as far as raising meat birds, broilers, it's like an on and off again. We'll do it this year. I do it a couple years and I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. Take a break. When we ended up not taking produce to market and we were just selling frozen meat, you needed a way to sample that product. And Greg started out with doing fried pork rinds.
Yeah.
And people love the fried pork rinds.
My gosh, it was a hit. It was a big hit. I wouldn't say it was the safest thing we've ever done because there was a deep fryer and it was a propane deep fryer. And there are a lot of people who show up at farmers markets with dogs who are not particularly attentive, we'll say. In any case, there was way too much danger involved in the grease, and so I had to stop doing that pretty soon after I started. Maybe it was like one season at most that I had done the pork rinds at the farmers market. So we started cooking at farmers markets, and we settled on doing just as simple as we could get it, like a plain, like a pork patty on a locally made bun.
Well, let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
Because we were selling at the Arsenal, or at the Lawrenceville Farmers Market at Arsenal Park.
Oh, this guy.
And
I
we were,
love that guy.
and
but
we
I
were
don't
selling
love that guy.
produce,
Yeah.
and we were selling, maybe we were selling meat, I don't remember, but
A little stand. It was a
Yeah.
nice little stand.
our little vegetable stand.
A little bit of garlic, a little bit of this and that.
Maybe it was a rainy day. I can't remember why, but he was right next to the popsicle guy.
Yeah. And the popsicle guy comes over and he says, "Oh, I'm not even going to do half as much as I do on a normal market day." And he told me what half was. And it was like double what I get on a good day. And I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, this guy, he's selling sugar and water and he's crushing it. He's crushing it. There's no cost, in the ingredients and what he's doing. There's no nutrition in what he's doing. I'm selling organic produce. We're focused on, over the span of the years, we focus on nutrition and how we can get more minerals into the soil so that we can grow healthier food, because that was really what was keeping the customers here, was that they had perceived it as healthier and they needed that from us. And so we adapted, but there was no communication mechanism. So it's like, how do we even communicate healthy? We're healthier.
Look at our soil test.
Look at these incomprehensible soil tests. See, we're better, and like nobody else has soil tests to compare to anyway, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that we have really great looking soil tests because we don't have the bad soil tests to compare. Anyway, we were all about this. I'm like we have we have to have some of the absolute most nutritious food at this entire market, perhaps this entire corner of the city, which is a very popular corner of the city, and I can't beat this popsicle guy. Right, and so I'm selling food. Forget it. Like I'm just gonna find a way to sell food because that's where it's at.
That's where farmers markets were headed.
That's where farmers markets
Walk
are
around
headed.
and
People are
foods,
walking
yeah.
around. Yeah, and we've had it. There's people who are, they'd come and look at our produce and they'd have this big bag of popcorn and they'd reach over and their popcorn would spill all over our produce, and it's just like, come on, guys, like, why are we dealing with this? Like, it's obviously about, there's some social stuff, and then you do interviews with people and they're all like, I'll buy organic, local 100% of the time if it's available, and then they all walk past your stand eating popsicles and popcorn. So it's like, okay, I guess you're not. But when we were selling prepared foods, You know, it's a completely different engagement with the customer than it is when we're standing there trying to say, you know, buy our stuff so you can go home and cook for yourself. You know, they don't have to do anything. They just have to open the package and eat it. And that's what we want. You know, if they want hand foods, like, let's do it. And so we started selling like 18. I think we got a cart. Our neighbor, who's probably as crazy as we are, is just like, you guys need to be out there selling this stuff too. And he was like a major force for like getting us involved in the pigs in the first place. You know, he's like, you got to get away from just the veggies and get some meat going here. Like, let's get some bacon produced. And so he had given us a 0 interest loan to just get the pigs started when we were buying that. And then he found like this cart, and he's like, I'm getting you guys this cart. And he drove it all the way back from Harrisburg. He was like the major wind in the sails to get us going on this whole enterprise. And eventually it was like, okay, the cart's too hard to deal with. And so we wound up just getting these tents and setting up a bigger grill and tents. And we had at one point like a really huge like 8-burner grill. And now we're down to a 4-burner grill. So we've had a bunch of like kitchen evolutions in how we cook. But the menu hasn't changed very much. You know, we have just the pork burgers, which I can legitimately call hamburgers, which no beef can claim, yet they all try. So I kind of stand on that soapbox and preach about how good pork is, and especially pork with more pork. So like, let's say a burger, you know, the pork burger with bacon. I'm hungry. I'm going to start talking about.
We have some signature sandwiches that we go with, and one is the PIG, and that's basically one of our 1/4 pound pork patties. And we use Breadworks buns, and we use Cherish Creamery cheese, and Clarion River sauerkraut, and Miller's mustard from Mars, PA. And so we're trying to source all the toppings and ingredients that go on these burgers ultra local and sell it cheaper than McDonald's can sell it. And so people are getting a nutrient dense burger at a reasonable price, and we're still making bang for the buck because we're selling 1 pound of ground pork for $9 a pound, or we're selling a 1/4 pound burger for $9. And it's still a cheap burger at $9 if you look at McDonald's prices or Burgatory prices or anything like that.
We just did. I saw the average for the 1/4 pounder with cheese deluxe was more than we were selling the PIG, the notorious PIG, which is the sauerkraut, the Miller's mustard. On the regular PIG, we call the notorious PIG. We were cheaper than McDonald's on the last average check. There may be some restaurants cheaper than us, but we're there.
But we're not racing to the bottom either. I just don't want...
That's a deluxe.
That I'm just saying that our prices are low, but I'm not trying to undercut.
They have a hamburger for $2.19. We are not heading to the bottom. We're definitely at the gourmet sandwich deluxe level. We do call the double burger a Pig Mac.
So there's another benefit to a farm having livestock and having animals, particularly pigs, because it helps to like complete that circular system on the farm.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
How we manage the pigs and how they integrate within the farm?
Yeah.
With this funding from the conservation district, I hope to get back to the hogs as farm worker concepts that we were pioneering. So being able to kind of integrate the hogs with like the permacultural principles of like water management, for example. In permaculture, in order to retain water on steep hillsides, you'd construct a swale, which is like a ditch. It's a ditch. It's on contour, and so when water sheets off the hillside, it basically lands in the ditch and doesn't go any further. It just soaks into the ground, and it has a lot of environmental benefits after that, especially for things that are planted along it. You know, it's like a permanent irrigation system for things that grow along the swale, and so I can use the hogs as the swale builders by putting their fence line deliberately on the contour line and then allowing them to root it and feeding them in strategic places where they're going to root a little bit deeper, or they're going to cause like landscape events to happen, which are going to allow us to retain water over the course of many years after the pigs are gone. They're terraforming parts of the farm. We also use them for invasive control, that we can put them in an area where there's a lot of like multifloral rose or bittersweet or autumn olive, and they'll just uproot everything. Unlike the goats, the pigs dig. They don't just defoliate.
So what you were talking about is invasive species that you
Right.
want to get rid of.
Here
And so
on
you-
the farm,
yeah.
right? So we've got 80 some acres, and it's like what we're only growing, as Jen said, on 2-3 acres, maybe let's say 5 acres we're keeping for food production, and then maybe another 10 acres that are just like pasture grounds. But everything else, it's just wild out here, and trying to keep up with
And
the
nature's always trying
landscaping.
to take back.
Right. So we have like 60 acres of like wilds that's just trying to regrow. And so having those hogs be able to pasture through there occasionally, I can feed them deliberately on the plants I don't want. And they're just going to keep digging that plant to get that food until that plant is no more. And so, whether it's a tree or a shrub, we can strategically put them around the different parts of the farm.
Well, and as far as maybe the local food system cycle, we have collaborated with industries within Pittsburgh. Zero Waste Wrangler has brought out spent grains from the breweries, and we feed that to the pigs.
That's an endless supply at this point. Like,
It is.
Yeah.
It's and,
So many breweries.
The bottlenecks happen in other places than the generators. There's tons of generation. We saw a lot from some of the produce companies down in Pittsburgh. He'd sell pallets to grocery stores. They'd break pallets and then sell cases to stores and shops and wherever else, to restaurants. And they'd wind up with 20 some pallets of pumpkins. Things that have arrived in Pittsburgh ready for distribution, but they're not ready for distribution. They might be a little bit too old, and so they have to move them back out again. And what do they do with them? So they were contacting us and sending out trucks with 20 pallets of food on them. And so we didn't count it really as part of the hog diet. We ration them off. We calculate out by weight how much feed they should get for vitamins and stuff. And so we just threw that produce in as fun. It's
Yeah.
just entertainment. I mean, to see them wallowing in like 2 tons of Malbec grapes from Argentina, eating out of the side of their mouths like Romans. It's just like they were like some palm leaves shy of like paradise. So I don't think they're having a bad time about it. I think it's a good time.
yeah.
So that's why we
like
say
it.
that's why we say fun, because they get to root all that stuff up. And then we buy wood chips from AgRecycle, full truckloads of wood chips, and that's our browns. And then we add in, I also get sawdust from a couple local sawmills, and that all goes in all the same place. We'll dump in a bunch of dry, put all the wet on the dry, put all the dry on the wet, and the pigs turn it all up. And then we've got yards and yards of compost coming off of those guys, and it's just a machine.
And you put that right back onto your fields.
And that's, composted first. There's a couple other things we do. We do biodynamic treatments here. We've had some biodynamic stuff going on since, I don't know if it was the very first year. I don't think Jack and Dale were into biodynamics very much. It's a little hokey.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think I haven't talked about that on my podcast, and it is very interesting.
It's, from my limited understanding of it, it's like taking like a concentrate and adding that concentrate to a living system and having that system kind of start producing it. So in the biodynamic tradition, there's a few preparations that are made that form these concentrates, and that when they go into the compost pile, that it supercharges the compost pile with various chemical compounds. It helps to invigorate the life of the compost pile. It helps to provide new forms of the same minerals. They've just transformed into a different complex. I don't
It doesn't
really
sound
how to-
too hokey, but I mean,
Well,
where does the hokey come in?
the science behind
Your
it.
words. You described it as a little hokey.
I described it as hokey and said that's, like I said, my understanding of what's going on in the process, but I don't believe a lot of it has been scientifically confirmed outside of direct observation. And so It's like, why does this work? And nobody can answer the question. All they can say is when it's used, it has a measurable effect that is significant for positive benefits to the crops that are in the ground. And so that's why there's hokiness, because why would the preparations be made in this way, and how did this information come to be? Because some of them are like take weeds and stuff them inside of some part of an animal and then hang it in the sun for a while, bury it for a while. And if you don't do it in this particular pattern, in this particular order, it actually doesn't form the right compounds and it doesn't actually work. But if you do it according to these hokey instructions, then it'll work. And it's amazing that it actually does. But
and there's something about the cycles of the moon too, because I remember
it's all inclusive of universal forces, planetary positions. Like there's all kinds of the words you say and how you pronounce them. That's all included in hokiness.
Gotcha.
But I think you can even avoid. You don't even really have to engage in the hokiness. You just do the
science
thing, and it works.
Right.
So.
But as we pursue and aspire towards healthier and healthier and healthier and healthier produce, I don't think we can avoid it. At some point, we're going to have to go with all of the stuff, because just putting it in isn't it does a lot. It definitely sets us apart from other farms who aren't doing it, and definitely adds a level of nutrition, but I don't think it's going to go as high as we need it to go. By more, I mean make the preps ourselves and that kind of thing, like macrobiotics.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you guys about that you want to tell people about Blackberry Meadows Farm?
Well, I think we should talk about Farm Club.
Farm Club?
Yeah, so our next iteration is that I've been doing this for 30 years, farming. And the next level that we foresee Blackberry Meadows going is that people start growing their own food and grow it here. And we'll keep up with the facility, and we'll create this place to become the hub of the food production for Blackberry Meadows. And we'll lease out plots, 30 by 50 plots, and families can come and grow their food here and share resources, share skills, share knowledge, and share the facility as well. And so in the ideal picture, people will come out, grow food, work together if they want, or just do their own thing. If there's an abundance of food that they grow, they could sell it through consignment through the CSA one day. And if not, they don't want to do that, then there could be bulk canning projects that happen here, bulk preserving projects, workshops that are led here. I think of this as the lodge, and so dinners, activities, educational programs, that sort of stuff can happen here, along with being a member of the farm club. Sort of like golf club lifestyle, but sustainable farm-based. Grow your own food. And so we're slowly working towards that. We have 6 to 10 plots that I could afford to experiment with this farm club. We have 1 sign up so far. We're just very low key about it. We're working with CMU, the students from, what program are they from?
The Sustainable and Resilient Communities.
There's some grad students that are helping to write up the policy and procedures for this, so that all of the hiccups that we might be able to foresee are spelled out with ways to deal with it ahead
I have
of time.
so many questions already. Like, what sort of resources are provided? What sort of restrictions are put on how wild you let it get? And if they're not weeding, what are you going to... It's like a community garden on steroids.
It is. It is. And we realize that there are a lot of bumps in the road.
Which is where CMU comes in.
Yeah.
It's like, help us with this academic exercise of figuring out the most obvious stumbling blocks in how people are going to relate to each other. They all line up for the bathroom at once. They all have personal needs. They're all stealing each other's tools. They're all stealing each other's water. They're all killing each other's seedlings. Like, think of the worst case scenario.
That is terrible. Yeah, I was just thinking, like,
how can it degrade to like the worst possible human behavior? And let's just start with setting much higher expectations, so that why we're here is a common goal, that we're all going to be a little more understanding and accepting of each other because we're going to achieve something. And the thing that we're hoping is achieved is that vegetables are grown. The nutritional component of the diet. So that's the vitamins and minerals and the fiber. Not so much the calories, not the protein, not the fat, not the carbohydrate, but the vitamins and minerals go into the control of the people. Right? Because that's the hardest.
It's most perishable.
All farming. It is the most perishable. It is the most abused and non-nutritious. And it should be the most nutritious, and it is not, because it's been commoditized. And so if we can figure out a way to get people to help, because it's hard. It's hard to grow that stuff. It's hard to keep up with all the mineral inputs. It's hard to keep up with all of the, everything we need to do to get that produce up to the most nutritious thing a human can consume, right? And so we need help. And if we hire it, the price goes through the roof. Like, if we just hire labor on to produce more food, like, we can't afford to both do the minerals and the labor at the same time. And so that's the balancing act we've been trying to maintain, is like, how can we pay people to help us, and so we can grow more food and put more money into the soil so that we can grow more nutritious food at the same time and keep up the nutrition levels. Because if we don't continuously put nutrition into the soil, then our produce is going to start slipping back again. So it has to continuously be added. And so that's like a whole community effort. And that's where Farm Club comes in my opinion. That's the need that it really serves, is to help people to get through the veggies, right? And then we open up the area that we've been creating for the last 10 years, where people can chop it, they can put it into containers and use it quickly. Like restaurants pre-chop foods for their whole menu. It's like, you can't be chopping stuff during dinner service, right? That time has passed. We did that at 2 p.m., right? You're going into the restaurant for dinner service, like, everything's ready to go. And so you got to consider that everybody's life is so hectic right now. If we can do not just the vegetable production, but help them to get their food chopped and prepped and ready for the week, maybe even cooked once, right? Maybe even like roasted in an oven, right? Yeah. Now you're ready to go, right? You just reheat and serve, or just mix up 3 items and you've got a stir fry.
But there's so many possibilities. It could be food. The food club could have a dinner club, and that you all come together and you make huge pots of something and you take it home, and there's 2 nights of dinners made because you participated in the food club and prepped a dinner. Right.
You're creating community.
Yeah.
It's all about community.
Yeah.
It's really always been.
Yeah.
It's always been. There's never a time that it's changed.
It is very much all about community. The CSA has always been that way. And that's part of why our CSA has always been a face-to-face. We've never done a drop-off at the door type CSA. That's why I prefer most customers to come here. We do deliver to the farmers markets, but they do have to slow down and talk to us, which, I really value. And that's where I get the reward, is the interaction with the customers.
And it's hard when you're hustling.
Yeah.
When we're slinging burgers, it's really hard. Like, we get a couple of waves. I recognize faces of the CSA members.
You're like, head down.
Right? And it's like, and how can they engage with us? Like, here, we open on Wednesdays, and it's like all day, like 11 to 7.
That's our day off.
And it's like I say, I tell them, I was like, this is my Sunday. Like, I'm hanging out with you guys all day. I'm just going to sit out here in the cafe and, talk about the produce and go do tours and just be around, watch the kids play in the yard. It's a super fun time,
And I think a lot of people need that. People need to get off their devices. They need their kids to get out and get dirty. I took a food safety safe serve class with Penn State, and I remember that guy said farmers need to do a better job of keeping their produce clean. I mean, don't argue with that at all, right? But it's because people aren't exposed to the microbes that they used to be. that everybody used to
Yeah.
have a grandfather and uncle that had a farm, and then go out and get dirty on the farm, which is the microbes on the farm.
A couple times a year.
Go pick beans with the family.
Get your farm
And
treatment.
you're getting you're eating
Yeah.
beans while you're out in the field, getting not washed or anything. Those are microbes, and your body recognizes them.
Yeah.
And when
we need them.
Yeah, you need
The-
them. And when you're in a
Your
sterile,
biome, it's been proven. It's scientifically proven. We need that diverse biome.
And so he said, farmers get it all the time, but people who live in the city are eating your produce and are not getting it. So you need to be ultra vigilant about keeping your produce clean. He was giving advice about how to wash your produce. And what I came away from that was, well, that's not cool, right? No, I have to go to the extra work to keep my produce clean because people aren't getting exposed to farms. Well, let's expose them to farms.
Yep.
So get them out here. Get kids dirty. Go take the kids to the barnyard. Go pick tomatoes off the vine. Like, get kids dirty. And
Yeah.
then mental health improves. Physical health improves. It all gets better when kids get out and get dirty on a farm. And so that's why Farm Club, I think, is going to be successful, is that it gets people on the farm.
And
They
how
go-
Not
does
just kids, but adults too
Yeah,
who
they all need
need
it
biome.
too. Yeah.
and how do people get involved in this farm club? Is it something that's like exclusive, or is it open to?
No, we do have
everybody?
a down payment on our website for Farm Club. I think it's a $200 down payment to get your plot. There's only 6. We've got 1 sold.
Oh man.
We have one
So-
deposit. It isn't sold.
Yeah, 1 deposit, right? I'm not.
Well, that's
But
essentially
that's okay.
committed.
It's
You have
just a
one
commitment.
committed.
You got a
Yep.
commitment, and 200's a lot of commitment. So
Yeah.
we feel they're fully committed,
Oh yeah, I know they're committed.
and they're ready to start digging too. And it's
But we're not
still
ready to
only
just
early March.
jump deep into it either, right? Because there are a lot of questions that need to be answered before I get 30 people that are coming out here.
So we'd kind of rather keep it small.
Keep it slow.
All you listeners.
But 200 for the down payment. Then what is it per month?
We're
Or
thinking
how are you doing that?
$1,000 total payment.
Total.
Which would
Yeah.
roughly be $200 a month for the plot, which would equal about
Well, I feel like it's
4
more than just the plot.
It's way more than
Right?
just the
They
plot.
get access to
But
this.
that's
yeah,
what
it's
they're.
you're joining an well, it is
Right.
kind of exclusive club. Like
Yeah.
it's the 6 members you're gonna have this year. That's pretty.
But it could be 6
Special.
families, and we'll see how it all pans out
Yeah.
with everybody being here at once, while Blackberry Meadows is still operating at full capacity.
Right. Yeah, we're going
This
to
is-
keep the
this is
CSA
not
going.
where this is not a big pivot. This is an added something that's coming on to the farm. It's opening up something new, not adapting something that's been here, right? But we feel like too many people have said, "Oh, you've got your own farm. I want my own 5-acre plot that's like a sustainable homestead for me," And so this is it. Like, this is your homestead away from home, right? Where you can come out and grow
Sit
your
in the
food.
hammock, grow your food.
Lay at the hammock, have a campfire, cook on the grill. That's where this should be, is like Jen said, it's like golf course, but like a hunting camp. But we're not hunting, we're growing vegetables. And so we work all morning, we process our harvest in the afternoon, and then we play music around a campfire in the evening. Like, that's what a day on
people are
farm.
gonna want to move in. They're gonna want to put tents.
Yeah, well,
that's
we've done,
That's a policy we're going to have to figure out.
And there's some
Yeah.
policy work around that, because, we do want to make that available. We want to let people be able to do that on their plot. Like, if you want to crush it, if you can only get out here and you got to do some major work, and like you want to put 2 days in and you don't want to drive back to Pittsburgh, like, you should be able to do that. Throw up a tent, sleep overnight,
It's very generous of you. You
is it
should
a-
be able to do that.
Is it a residence? Well, I try to put different hats on. There's definitely Greg, who is, build a wall around the farm and stay the heck out of my business. And then there's another Greg who's just like, well, how far can this thing go? If the community does want to get involved in farming, like, go ahead.
It's going to be the subdivided suburbs, but in a different way. Tent houses. Sorry.
Well, so residence is that's the big wrinkle. There's no residence. The farm is under conservation, and there
cool.
is no residences here other than the one that's here now.
Talk about the under conservation thing real quick.
One strategy for farms to be able to ensure that the land doesn't go to suburban development is to is to sell the development rights to the State Conservation Board. And so there are pools of money that are allocated towards the purchase of farmland development rights, so that no additional like housing, it like disincentivizes the subdivisions, specifically in suburbs, trying to keep farmland close to cities. And so we were able to go through a long process of federal first and then local red tape in order to get our farm put into a conservation easement, which helped us. I mean, financially, it knocked out like half the mortgage, like damn, and that really helped to like it didn't show up as like an influx of cash. It showed up as like increased cash flow, right? Like not as much was going to mortgage anymore, and so we had a little bit like loosened the noose, I say. So anyway, it did help us for the last few years, and it definitely gave us the kind of the cavalier attitude towards the farmer's grill to pursue it as a major revenue stream for the farm. Like once it went into conservation easement, it's like, all right, like we can kind of take a risk on this because it looks like we can generate as much with this enterprise as we were selling all of this produce at the farmer's market. And so we could that was a pivot when we shifted from produce to farmer's grill. And the conservation easement really, it empowered me at least to be able to say like, all right, like we can make a go of this because we have a little bit more resources to kind of keep us flowing without having to keep doing this produce job.
I thought of it as a alternative, not an equal alternative, but an alternative to fracking. It was an influx of money that we needed. Instead of destroying the environment, we're preserving the environment. So,
well, I like the homestead away from home. I think, is that your slogan?
That's a good one.
I think it should be your slogan. I love that. You just come right out of your head. Yeah, I know a lot of things about you because stuff just pops out of your head.
Right.
That's great. Well, Jen, Greg, thank you so much.
You bet. This is it.
So we're out here at the pig bin.
Pen.
We're at the pig pen. Okay.
Sty.
Okay. And we're looking at these pigs. We just saw the piglets, and we're out here looking at 8-month-old pigs. And you said that because of the warm weather, they've grown a lot quicker over the winter.
Yep. That we provide them with unlimited feed all the time so that any of their wants or needs are met. And over this winter, because it was so warm, we've seen another, they're a month early right now. And so we're considering calling up the butcher and getting some sooner dates, or seeing whether or not they've got some space to process a few of them.
Well, at what age do you generally process?
We're normally aiming at about 8 months.
Okay.
And that's from birth. So there's like 2 months when they're piglets and when they're drinking milk and starting to eat feed. And then there's a point during that time where mom's done with the competition. She doesn't want the babies around anymore, and she starts to put her nose under them and throw them across the barn. And so at that point, we wean the babies for their safety.
Sure.
And then they grow up away from mom, but with as much feed as we can give them, because our interest is in bacon. And so we want to make sure that if they have hunger in any way, shape, or form, that hunger is satisfied. And ideally, we're giving them as much extra pasture, I was mentioning haylage, which is fermented hay. So that's their sauerkraut. So they're getting they're getting as much of the pasture as we can give them in the wintertime, even though it's like 70 degrees.
It really is bonkers for March. Some of them, I guess, I feel are about the size that I thought pigs would be when they were harvested, but some of them seem kind of small, like this little black one here.
Oh, yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, we do have multiple different sows gave birth between late August and mid-September, late September, let's say. And so all of those pigs, 8 months later, we're talking about a harvest in April, May. And what that does for us is that it provides us with all of the inventory that we need for farmers market season. It's like a strategy for us to make sure that, we don't have a lot of animals that are going to be ready in the middle of the winter, when everybody's hunkered down and there aren't as many sales avenues for us.
So how do you pick ones to keep to reproduce?
We are working with our meat stock, where we're breeding the meat stock gilts back into the breeding herd because of what we were talking about earlier with the rollover rate and the difficulty in maintaining high birth numbers, or high weaning numbers rather, because the moms get so big they can't keep their babies alive, is basically what it comes down to. So,
and they literally roll over on them.
They literally roll over on the babies, and the babies can't withstand the weight of the mom when they get huge. So keeping breeding stock for a lot of years has some problems that may not be related to how many babies they have or how sweet the pig is, because there's some really nice pigs too that come through here, and it does make me sad when they go. But our goal is to feed people, and so that means more bacon. And so our whole program is geared up so that we can have more success in the farrowing barns and have more piglets that are available to other farmers in the springtime. Like the ones that are born right now that we just saw, most of those are going to get sold to other farmers and other homesteaders who really want to have a pig around for the summertime. Right? They do a great job in eating the leftover produce. They do a great job cleaning up. They do a great job moving invasives. And so there's some benefits to having a pig around, but keeping a pig over the wintertime, you're feeding it so that it's getting fatter, and doesn't make sense for a lot of people to do that. So they want to buy a pig in April, let's say, is the earliest you'd want a pig, and you want it to be 2 months old already so that it's ready to harvest in October when the weather starts to turn. And so they, basically you're just keeping the pig outside all summer long.
And then are they responsible for getting it processed?
Yep,
so you're not just renting
everything.
The pig,
No.
You're selling the pig
No,
outright.
It's not my pig any longer. We just sell the piglets as meat pig stock for other farmers to raise 5 to 10 pigs a year. And other farmers don't have to go to auction, and they don't have to try to source them from somebody else. They know me, they know our farm, they know what we're doing. They've been here, they've seen the whole program. This is what they want, is something that, a hog that was bred for hardiness here in Pennsylvania, that there's multiple generations of pigs that have been born here and that we're breeding for, the hardy, grow fast kind of pigs. And so that's what we've got, big meat pigs.
It's the same logic to not buying your seedlings at Home Depot. Buy them from a local grower who's got the local produce and has taken harvested the local seeds and grown the local seedlings for this region and for this area.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they are fun to see, and I do like bacon. How do you deal with that when you have to say goodbye?
No, I don't feel like there's a lot of emotional attachment to them. I don't really personify them. It's really easy to read Charlotte's Web and read about Wilbur and his personality, but I don't see any indication that there's motivation beyond food and food dominance amongst the pigs.
And so they're part of the food chain?
They're definitely would be feral if they weren't here being cared for like I'm caring for them. They're not, they are domesticated, but the least domesticated of most animals that are used for food production.
Okay.
And so, I feel like I give them a much better life than the foraging and the survival that they would have to endure out in the wild.
Good point. All right, thanks.
Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon.
With Bowl and Spoon is written, produced and hosted by Shelley Danko Day. Original theme song was written and performed by Paul LeBreeze and friends. You can listen to With Bowl and Spoon wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe, like, review and share. Follow us and send us questions or messages on Facebook and Instagram at With Bowl and Spoon. Thanks for listening.
And smooth. Bowl.